Hey Jarvis, what's on my to-do list this week?
Here's what's open across your GTD context lists. Since GTD here is organized by context rather than date, I pulled across all lists so nothing's missed. Work Explore Figma MCP schematic generator slash updater battery monitor design, FC only power, relay switch to big batteries. Look into Ardu Pilot MCP for mission planner agent access order ESC plus airspeed sensor. Mirror.
All right. Welcome. This is going to be a long form, high level video explaining the ins and outs of my AI OS, what you might call Jarvis operating system. We'll keep it high level, but we'll get a lot more into the weeds than we ever have. So to get started, the reason I'm building this and the reason why I think a lot of us are trying to build systems like this is we want a single entry point for an all AI related tasks. So one form of communication like a Jarvis, a personal assistant, where you could say, hey Jarvis, do this thing, and no matter what that thing is, it's going to go do its best to execute that task. And that's the objective of what we're all building, and all of them are a work in progress, but this is my work in progress. So we'll dive right into what I have. So we'll start with, it's broken up into multiple sections. We've got our capture section, our brain, our access. This is our mobile Telegram access, what you just saw in that demo. Hygiene for cleaning up and making sure that the system stays up to date. And the execution pipeline. This is for running projects. When I have a project idea, these are the steps that it follows to take my idea to execution on my behalf. And checking with me along the way if there's any major roadblocks. Otherwise, let it run for as long as possible without sacrificing the quality of the results. And we'll get into that. But we'll start from the very beginning. Like I said, I want a single entry point where I can say, hey Jarvis, do this thing for me, okay? And that is the capture section. So step one, first step, idea inbox. Now, this is my main input for entering things into my system. And what's laughably simple about it is just a widget on my phone that opens a blank, can you see that? Oh, come on. That opens a blank Obsidian template. So I just put in a title and then I just speak to text, dictate whatever the thing is. Maybe it's add this to my grocery list. Maybe I just had an idea for a new company, or hey, I just saw a YouTube video I like. Here's the link. Let me save it for later. Or I want to try to set up an automated workflow for Jarvis to send birthday cards to my friends and family on my behalf, which is an example we'll go into in this video. So that, real simple, just an Obsidian note. And the Obsidian is where all of my information lives, largely. It's Obsidian and my C drive, but Obsidian lives in my C drive. So after the item has been plopped in, let's say I want to send a birthday note to all of my friends and family, I'll spin up a routine, which is just a Claude desktop. For the things that are on my desktop, it is just a Claude routine with a series of scheduled automations. It'll say, hey, what's the contents of this idea? That's what the sorting agent does. It'll say, what kind of thing is this? Is it a to-do list item? Is it an idea? Is it a reference note? Or is it a project? In this case, it's a project, and we'll get into it. But there's more to this. There's also, what if it doesn't know what it is? If it doesn't know what it is, it's going to ping me on Telegram and then plop that note right back into the ideas inbox. And they'll text me, it'll say, hey, I have no idea what this is. Can you please add more clarification? I'm confused about XYZ. And it'll just sit back in my inbox. It has a timeout of like maybe a week before it tries to run it through the system again. So that's my opportunity to clarify what I was saying. Or sometimes I just butt dial it. I just have to delete the message. It'll just be like, hey, random untitled thing. So no matter what the item is, it's going to ping me on Telegram and it'll just say like, hey, I got your to-do list item. It's filed away. Don't worry about it. And then it'll archive the item. Now, if it's a project, it will spin up a new automation, which is a research agent. So it will spin up an Opus agent or a series of Opus agents to dig deep into the details of what I just proposed. Okay, you want to send birthday cards to all of your friends? Well, who are your friends? Do you already know who your friends are? Are they stored in the vault somewhere? Do we know their birthdays? If your friends are stored, are their birthdays stored? And so you want to print on demand birthday cards. Okay, are there any services that can do that? And it'll do extensive research, and then it'll compile all of that research into my brain, and specifically my potential projects folder inside of my second brain. And brain sounds scary, but all it is a folder on my computer. And that folder is my Obsidian Second Vault, which I'm sure you've heard people talking about the Second Vault as a brain, aka a storage device of all of the information that you have. So no matter what type of project I have here, idea, reference note, project, it's going to go into a corresponding folder inside of the brain. A lot of them are simple. Like I said, inbox is already a folder in my brain. Ideas, getting things done, which is my to-do list. References, my people, right? That's a folder in there. And potential projects. That's where my research agent put the findings of that research project. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here is my graph view of my second brain. So all of my nodes, all of my thoughts, and the inbox is the biggest one because that is all of the archived items inside of my inbox. So you can see my inbox is empty, but that's all it is. It's just a folder in my Obsidian Vault. But let's go into the potential projects folder, which I just referenced. So these are all of my harebrained ideas that I dictated into my phone, and it did extensive research on. Oops. So let's find the one I just talked about. AI birthday card service. It thinks it's a service. So it'll save my original text, which was my brain dump. And as you can see from here, I didn't really put a lot of thought into this one for demo purposes. Think it's a long dictation with a lot of thoughts and ideas to go with, but let's see what it can do from here. So first of all, it says service, which makes me think it thinks I'm trying to sell it. But it'll show me its research findings. So it'll show research findings, background content, direct mail APIs, automated things, sources. These are probably all different services that it found online and links to those services of where you can print on demand birthday cards. So look, here's its findings. This is it synthesizing its thoughts, some risks and unknowns, maybe questions it needs answered by me or some things that it couldn't find in its research, and adjacent prior art. What's similar to this that already exists? Takes that findings and it turns it into a proposed plan. Again, just another document in my Obsidian second brain. So in here, the project framing. It does think it's a company. It's not usually this bad. I usually give it more information. So what's the project? What's in scope? What's not in scope? What are some open questions that it needs from me or we need further research on? Next steps and confidence metrics. So boom, here's its proposed plan. So with this proposed plan, I can then either go into this folder and read through it and edit and say, like, good idea, right? And then just save that. Or I can go talk to my Telegram bot, which has access to my second brain, which is just the files in here. And I'll say, hey, there's a new proposed project in my potential project folder. Can you read it, read the proposal, and explain it to me? That's usually what I'll do. That's what I'm doing on my phone on the go. And we'll have a back and forth conversation about what do I actually want to do. Can you explain it to me? Okay, this phase doesn't make sense to me. Let's go into more detail. Or I don't like this phase. Can we change it in this way? And that Telegram agent has the ability to access the file and edit the file in my actual document. So it can go and modify that proposed plan on the fly and refine it. Once it's refined, I can then say promote this to a full-blown plan. And that's where the agent will automatically move that proposed plan and promote it. I just have a skill that says promote to plan, and it'll move it onto my just Windows computer, C drive, And inside my documents folder, I have a projects folder. And in that projects folder are all of my bona fide projects, the ones that made the cut, the ones that got out of the brainstorming phase. And that's where it goes to begin executing the plan. Now there's a few different ways I execute a plan, and this is going to need much more detailed deep dives that I cannot go into in this video, but let's keep it high level. There's two different types of plans, okay? A high risk plan and a low risk plan, okay? The low risk plan is just the high risk plan where I took off a lot of the guardrails to keep me out of the loop. So a high risk plan is like an actual company, my actual job, or an actual software that I'm trying to sell, or I'm collaborating with people, a code base I don't want to break. Whereas a low risk plan is something dumb that I don't care about, whether it fails or blows up or doesn't work, like this birthday card idea, okay? So we'll filter it that way. The agent will filter, well, I will kind of decide whether it's high risk or not when I promote it. But let's go through the high risk mode first, because the low risk will just basically be this with less guardrails. And I'll go through it real quick, okay? Clearly defined, narrowly scoped success criteria is the golden ticket that you take away from this. Maybe there's a second golden ticket. What does this project look like if it was successfully completed? That's what an agent needs. If you got a wishy-washy idea of what you want, you're going to get a wishy-washy answer. It's going to come out bad. So I will have a clear success criteria. We'll draft a proposed plan. This is how I do it manually for high risk. This is actually outside of this automated pipeline. This is if I'm just in my Claude Code terminal working on a really important project, adding a new feature to an app or something. So I will have a Claude agent put together a proposed plan. Then I will have a series of parallel agents spin up and deep dive and pressure test the assumptions made by that plan. An agent for phase 1, a parallel agent for phase 2, a parallel agent for phase 3, checking the docs, confirming any assumptions, and looking for any pressure points that are going to trip up the agent that's actually executing this plan. Okay, then once I'm happy with it, I will ratify it to a full-blown plan. This again is my manual mode, my manual workflow, turning a proposed plan into a bona fide plan. Once it's a bona fide plan, I have a skill which does two things. It runs the task, so it'll start phase 1, start running it, and 2, it will monitor its own context. And it'll start running through the plan, it'll start hammering until it hits what I've determined the context rot threshold, which is 150,000 tokens to 200,000 tokens, where the project starts to go down the drain. The agent starts to hallucinate, bad results happen, it has to stop at that gate, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is test-driven development, okay? The purpose of the clearly defined success criteria is that it's testable, it's quantifiable. So at the end of this phase, this has to be true. And ideally, the agent can test it itself. It can come up with a test, write the test, execute the test, and see if it passed the test before it says, phase done, spin up a new agent for phase 2. Okay, that's super important, test-driven development. Those are the two prongs, the two big prongs that make a project successful. I know Claude and a lot of agents and Hermes will be like, oh, just tell it the goal and let it run forever. But an agent's going to hit context rot after like max 20 runs of something or 20 back and forths, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and you're just going to be setting tokens on fire, burning through your limits, and getting worse and worse results the longer it runs. So that's why swapping things out, swapping an agent out when it gets tired and putting a fresh one in, that's the golden ticket. Then before the agent is finished, I will enter the system and say, okay, look, this project turned out the way that I wanted it to. Sometimes there's a test that it needs a human for. Like it'll say like, I'm building augmented reality glasses. The thing's like, I can't see your glasses. Would you please check the style to see if you like how this is styled? And I'll give it a thumbs up. But ideally, I want it to run all those tests by itself. Then once the project's done, it'll archive and close. That's enough detail from this. So the low risk version of this is just the same thing but automated. I will just put all of these phases on a loop. I'll say basically what the end criteria is and what the phase criteria is, and I will spin up a runtime, and I'll go into more detail on this in a later video, that just punches through all these phases for me. I trust that as long as I've reviewed the initial plan and I trust the end result of that initial plan, I will lean on my systems and my guardrails to get my agent from idea to execution without going fully haywire. And that is maybe a lot harder than it sounds, but I think it sounds pretty freaking hard. So maybe it's exactly as hard as it sounds. Having an idea is one thing, having an agent make something is another, but having an agent make your idea really well is like, that's where the money's made. So that is the high level of how I run a project through my workflow. Look, I actually made a little animation of basically what we just walked through there. Now, one more thing that I didn't cover is the whole second brain component. And the second brain is going to have to be a whole another video, but let me go into it quickly. What I showed you in the demo in the beginning of this video was me querying my second brain. So we talked about how do I get stuff into the brain. Okay, I just plop it in the Obsidian note, send up some automations, no rush, organize things into the file. But what happens if I want to get stuff out of the brain? What's my wife's birthday? Hopefully I know that. What is my friend's mailing address? I will talk to my agent, my Telegram agent, and I will just say, what's on my to-do list, which is what you saw. And what it will do is it has access to my whole Obsidian second brain, which, as I showed you, is just a series of folders that shows my to-do list, my ideas, my journal entries, my people, my potential projects, etc. And it'll go in there, go into my people, and find somebody's mailing address on my behalf. That's the real high level of how it works, and it can do that for anything across my system. And that's what's really nice to it. I'll use it, like I said, to brainstorm a project idea. Just have it back and forth and say, okay, I do like this about that proposed plan. I don't like this. Can you explain this more? Okay, we're ready to ratify it. Go ahead and make those modifications. And my agent will, through Telegram, make those changes for me. Two more really cool things before we close out. One is I modeled this off of how I work, right? I use getting things done for to-do lists. I got projects, but also I modeled it off of Karpathy's LLM Wiki and Gary Tan's GBrain. I can't really go into what that is now, but LLM Wiki is basically like Wikipedia. There's a page, my company, and it has a running list of all of the information about my company, and then there's little tags. If a person's name is referenced, that name will link to that person's wiki page, right? And then Gary Tan's GBrain is basically a historical record. At the bottom of all of my wiki pages, a lot of my second brain documents is a history, a log of what that person or what that thing means to me. I'll show you a quick example. In here, we go into Wiki, and I can look at my inbox pipeline, which is kind of what I'm talking about. This is the wiki for my inbox pipeline, okay? This explains what it is, what it's doing. Here is how it's working, and here is the timeline. This is what it means to me over time, right? And links to where it's being used, where it's being referenced elsewhere in my second brain. And that's how I have that for tons of people and tons of things, and I'm constantly building it out more and more. So back to that. That's as far deep as I'm going to get into my second brain, but there's a lot more to dig into there. And finally, there's one thing building up a second brain, but the hard thing is keeping it clean, right? You can make a project document. I'm constantly building new projects and dumping new brainstorm garbage into my second brain. It's like just full stream of conscious into my Obsidian vault here, just nonstop. So it gets cluttered. There's a lot of junk. So we have a whole hygiene workflow, which I'm not going to get too far into the details of, but basically it's just a series of scheduled automations that goes through and does lint reports, sees outdated documents every week or a couple times a week. An agent will go through, it'll read through, look for documents that are more than 3 months old, for example, flag them, make a document, and then a second automation will come in later and then go move all of those documents that are dated to my cold storage, which lives on my networked storage device off of my local disk. Keeps my brain clean, keeps my my documents folder lean and keep stuff tidy so that the wikis are constantly being updated, and there's always an agent going through my folders checking for changes, because most of my projects are backed up on Git or GitHub, so it'll just literally go look for those Git pull requests, and it'll get summaries of all the changes that are happening and all of the status updates of all my projects, and it'll just compile that into a document and then go populate all the wikis, so that that itemized history of all what things and people mean to me over time is constantly being cleaned up and updated. That's the high level of how this whole system works. It's really just effective and efficient ways to automate navigating through your file structure and giving tools access to things. So if you have any questions or anything you want me to dive deeper into, leave a comment, let me know. I will have deep dive videos of each one of these components coming soon, but this is just a teaser of what we're going to dig into. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.